Welcome everyone to the Emergent Essence Dynamics webinar number 10. It's April 22nd and our theme this week is Essentials of Healthy Relationship. And we have a great crowd globally here joining us. So thank you everyone for participating live and thank you all for listening to the recording as well. So this webinar is actually a continuation of last week's webinar, webinar number 9, Core Vitality and Resilient Well-Being. And I'm gonna post it publicly on YouTube anyways. So for those of you who chance upon this, you'll be able to reference that webinar as well. If there are other webinars that you want that aren't listed on the YouTube, because I have many on a private link, on the private side of the YouTube, you can always email me to request them. So this is about building resilience in relationship and also how to manage toxic behaviors or toxic patterns in relationship. Now, I have other webinars in the past that are dealing more with the power games specifically, as well as manipulation behaviors or toxic behaviors. This one, I'm trying to distill it down to very, very, very simple concepts that can give you a broad base. And it's not a fix-it-all, but it is what is the most essential thing you can do without getting too complex about keeping relationships healthy. So I just want to be very clear about that up front, okay? But the core concepts and lessons you learn here can diversify into all the variations, all the little complications, etc. But what I want to do is keep this as simple as possible. Now, unfortunately, you can only make life so simple, okay? There are some things that still introduce a little bit of complexity, or it's on a whole different level of mindset, and you have to unlearn a few things to tap into what I'm trying to get across here. But I'm going to be as pragmatic and practical and essential as I can be. Okay, so along the way, feel free to make comments, interrupt me with a question, it's fine, okay? If you have a lot of background noise, please mute yourself and then always unmute at any time to jump in, I don't mind, okay? So what are we discovering today? So I outlined it, but to be a little bit more specific, we're going to do a brief overview of what makes relationships more fluid and creative and resilient. Okay, what are those ingredients? And then, well, how can they become more rigid or potentially toxic? So when does that fluidity or that flow stop? And that is what's creating the suffering and the reactivity and the toxicity in the relationship. So this is more about how to create flow. I'm going to present to you and give you a simple way to open more fluidity in all your relationships. It's very, very basic. And this will begin to neutralize fear, judgments, and reactivity. It's not a cure-all because this does take discipline and especially self-discipline, but it does give you the path, okay? So I want you guys to know that what I give in these webinars, it's not a quick fix. It's not like, oh, here's the seven things you can do and your whole life is golden. I mean, these things are, they take self-discipline, they take a little bit of work. I'm being upfront about that because I'm not trying to say, oh, yeah, I know life is complex, but actually here's the simple way to do it. Do you guys follow what I'm saying here? That it does take self-awareness and self-discipline to make this work, but it does work when you apply yourself, okay? And when we're talking about relationships and making them healthy, I mean, the one thing I'm going to say over and over again, it comes from you first. You cannot expect the other person to change. They're not going to. And as you'll see later, if that's what you're expecting, you're actually playing into a game, all right? And I'm going to make the difference between like, okay, what are relationship games and then what is relationship fluidity? And then towards the end of the webinar, I'm going to give you tips on how to circulate resilience within yourself and then how to extend that out to your relationships. So again, this underlines the point. It all comes from you first, and it's what your mindset is and what you're doing is going to influence how others respond. And that is what is going to change the quality of the relationship. You don't have control over the other person, but you do have control over the quality of the relationship that you're giving out and receiving back in. Does anyone have any questions or comments here from the things I've said so far, or what feels fascinating so far? Or is this all going whoop over the head? Yeah, go ahead, Niru. Or yeah.
So and I think this is a really apt time for me to be doing this, because I'm at the moment, you know, when I'm looking at a couple of relationships with my clients, and I can see that the flow is being blocked because of payments. And this is something that I've decided that I'm going to address. So, you know, I've spoken to you about this before, that I tend to avoid the difficult conversations. So I think this is great for me, because, you know, one of the big realizations that I had is like, how am I contributing to this, right? Yes, it's great for me to blame the other person, but I am definitely contributing to this flow. So I'm really excited to see what I'm going to learn from this that I can apply right away to those relationships.
Okay, excellent. Couple things you said there about, well, first, like blame. Like, blame is just not going to get us anywhere. And then even the question, how are you contributing to the problem, or how am I, even takes us into defensiveness and blame. And so we just automatically go into resistance. What I'm going to show you later is basic acceptance allows us to see what's happening for what it is. And then we can look at it more like a creative act and start learning what are the lessons it's presenting us, or what does it demand of us. That starts to take blame out of it, because the sooner we'll move into a basic acceptance, and then we can start becoming more fluid with things. All resistance comes from non-acceptance, and it just is basically saying, I wish things were different. But that's not the reality, right? So yeah, if somebody's not making the payments, if you're afraid of confrontation, well, there's an acceptance here that needs to happen of, well, the payments aren't coming, and I'm not great with confrontation, so I got to acknowledge both of those things. Then I can start getting creative, right? So yeah, I'm going to give you steps on how to work that through. And it's not simple either to just point the finger and say, well, get on that. You know, I was like, oh, you would have already. Do you understand? So it goes a little deeper than that. Okay. Anyone else had anything to add? And welcome, Jenny. Welcome. If not, just give me a thumbs up and I'll proceed. Yeah, great. Okay. So just to be very brief, what is emergent essence dynamics and what does it do? Because there are some new people here and new people may be listening to the recording. So here's the basic concept. Everything, or foundation of it, everything is in relationship. I'm in relationship with myself, with you, with the world, with time. All right, so there's nothing that happens in isolation. So everything is in relationship, and that relationship follows a unique pattern that works in cycles. That pattern is actually fractal, meaning it's the same pattern working in small ways and big ways on all scales. So a little tiny tendency is showing up everywhere in big ways and small ways. It's the pattern itself that is driving both the person and the issue. It's driving the conflict. It's driving the fight. It's driving the transformation. It's really the pattern that's doing it, okay? So emergent essence dynamics pinpoints the fundamental patterns driving all our human dynamics. And it's a universal model that will fit underneath any coaching methodology. It fits with leadership, mediation, facilitation, healing, and personal development, and much, much more, even sales and dating, because everything has a dynamic and everything follows these patterns. So once we get to know how to recognize with dynamics, how to work with the patterns, we can start shifting ourselves and our relationships and our issues. So how do we do it? What we do is before we transform anything, we focus on resilience. Resilience is what brings fluidity, and it's what allows the pattern to begin to change. It is through fluidity. Otherwise, if we're coming from fear and reactivity and trying to change things, it's not going to sustain, and the pattern will get more rigid because it will just try to assert itself. So how do we get into the patterns? Once we have a base of resilience, we can start looking at the dynamics, how we're acting and behaving with each other, how I'm behaving with myself, how I'm behaving with you or my issues. It's through the actions and behaviors that the patterns start to come to the surface. And our training modules give you all the specific techniques on how to bring the patterns up. Once we have a resilient base, plus we've got some patterns at play, we can now start to shift that pattern in the resilient space. It's like you get to know the application on your iPhone, get to know how it works, then you bring it into a resilient space, put it in a toggle mode, and you can start shifting your apps around. And you can even drop deeper and go right into the source code programming. And then you can reset and everything gels into a new formation, and everything is automatically transforming itself. But it's because of the resilience and that you've introduced fluidity into the pattern. I don't know if that's too technical, but let me know how that sounds to you guys. Basically, build resilience, discover the dynamic, and shift it in a resilient space, not in a fearful space, okay? Okay, any questions, comments there?
Yeah, so far so good.
So far so good. Okay, so this is looking at how to build a resilient space in the relationship, okay? I'm gonna go less into what are the patterns of relationship, more onto how do you cultivate the resilience in the relationship so that you get the fluidity, all right? And then things will automatically start to transform themselves just from connecting with resilience, which is our basic vitality. It's our core vitality, our will to live, our ability to bounce back, okay? Now, there are several levels of relationship, and each of them are truthful, but there are various levels of truth, all right? So I got some funny diagrams here, but it's illustrating how we are in relationship with ourselves and with others. So we all have a story to tell. We all have a point of view. It's a singular truth. It's a singular experience of ourselves and the world around us. So that's my point of view. Now, if I get together with somebody else, they're going to have their own story. It's a different point of view. And we start playing games with each other because we try to change each other's points of view so that these things agree. And when they start to oppose each other or disagree, now we've got conflict and friction. And so this is the game. It's about truth in opposition. We're trying to decide what's true, what's not true, because my truth is my truth, your truth is your truth, but they don't match up. All right? That's the game level. I'll explain why we meet opposition here. But it's basically because we're all in our own belief systems and we're really not allowing influence, okay? If we drop to the next level, this is truth in flux. This is where we introduce fluidity. This is where I have my truth, but I'm willing to open and discover another truth and let that influence my own perception of the world. So we start to create fluidity by opening ourselves to more truths. And then that enables us to truly experience each other as opposed to experience our ideas of each other or our perceptions of each other. When I let go of my perceptions and I'm willing to take something in, then I can start to truly experience who you are. And this is what's creating fluidity. So this is where we could be opposites, but here we're fighting over it. You're, I mean, black and white, right and wrong. Here, black and white or right and wrong can work together in a complementary fashion because they will enlarge the picture. They work together to create a bigger picture. Beyond that, will go beyond the level of identity and get into unified truth. This is where all paradox is reconciled. This is where black and white can coexist, not be complementary, but be exactly the same thing, all right? Which our minds don't necessarily conceive of. But this is, it's beyond our world, it's transpersonal, it is infinite potential, infinite creativity, it's all being, all right? Infinite awareness, this is where everything is true at the same time, okay? And all those truths are reconciled. But we can experience, we can get a taste of that experience, and that is our core essence. It's our permanent, timeless being, all right? So this is a level of no identity. And when we are in no identity, we are basically in unity with each other, all right? Any questions there? Or is this sounding crazy so far? Or is it sounding okay?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Maren.
Do you know the theory U by Otto Scharmer?
Yes.
And I'm just thinking about that, and I'm trying to figure out if it is complementary to
It is complementary because it follows this path. Here we have fear and reactivity. Here we're more cooperative and resilient. And here is where we're going to get the source inspiration. So theory U, or the way I'll say it in an EED fashion, is we start with our rigidity. We open ourselves up, but that means we're letting go of identity. And then we drop into this essence space, and that's where everything is inspired or mixed around, or its pure potential. Then we can reconstruct it, and that creates a you, all right? So we descend down to the essence and then back to our basic world, but we've reorganized because we passed through the essence state, okay? Is that making sense to you, Marvin?
Yeah, and I was specifically thinking about the open heart, open mind, and open will, I think, and I was trying to figure out where that fits into your...
That fits in this dream space. Here, we're not going to have open heart, open mind. Here is where we train ourselves to open it, and once we're open, we can drop. Okay? And that's exactly what I'm going to show you today, okay? Is what's that process, without getting into too much technical detail. Okay, so the important thing to remember is when we're in our story, in our game, we are living according to conditions. Okay, this is right, that's wrong. And we feel rigid because anything that breaks our conditions is a threat, all right? So here is where transformation is not going to take place. This is just rearranging the furniture on the Titanic while it's sinking, okay? In the dream and source is an unconditional space because there is a fluidity. There's no real threat or protection here because we are resilient. We're driven by resilience. In the story in the game, we're driven by fear. And fear puts conditions on us. When we're resilient, there are really no conditions here because everything is possible. So therefore we can balance, have a flow of give and receive, and be fluid, all right? And this is where we do the transformative aspects of relationship in ourselves. We need to drop here. Again, it's like toggle mode, okay? And then we can come back into our game in our story, but the story in the game will be changed, all right? So let's look at the games. What are some typical power games? Well, there are basically two. I mean, there's many variations, but here's the two basic games we play. The first is the game of validation, which is asking the question, do I exist? Am I recognized? Do I belong? Am I worthy? So these are all about validation issues. Am I really here? Am I okay for you? Am I good enough? Am I perfect enough? Whatever, because if I don't get that recognition, I don't feel like I exist. So I'm going to play games so that you will validate me, okay? The next game is control. How do I make sure I exist, okay? Am I safe? Am I secure? Will I survive? Are you a threat to me? Are you taking things away? Because I want to make sure that I exist, okay? And we play both games basically at the same time. Some will favor control over validation, validation over control, but they're both about power. I want the power to exist, and I want the power to make sure I exist. Is this clear enough for you guys? If you strip it down to basic questions, these are people's motivations. Did you want to say something there, Yusuf, or were you okay? I just saw you give a hand.
No, I'm ahead of, and I'm thinking a little bit ahead. It's about sometime, okay, if you act from the resilient, the dream or the essence phase, but you have a rigid partner, or you know what I mean. So it's not, you'll be jumping up and down from essence to
exactly, and that's the rhythm of life. Is if we look back to this pyramid, I mean, we're fluctuating between all levels. We don't just favor one. We need access to all of them, and to flow between all of them, because all of them contribute to each other. So it's all interactive in a way.
So it's essential to build this resilience rock in the partner, just to be on the same language, because if the partner is clueless and you keep jumping up and down, eventually
you do jump it down. And I'll show you how you can influence them to move as well. But you've got to move first, okay? You can't wait for them to move. And I've drawn this red line on the pyramid because most of us are only living in story and game, and we're not even aware of dream or source levels, but we might hit on them once in a while.
Yeah, a glimpse. Yeah.
We'll get a glimpse of it. What I'm saying is we can access that consciously all the time and start willingly moving ourselves between these levels, okay? I'm not saying it's good to live in source. I'm not saying it's good to live in the dream all the time. The games have a use, okay?
Yeah.
They have usefulness. They teach us lessons, okay? They help us build new strengths. So both of these games are driven by fear, need, and desire, which equals emptiness. And I'll explain emptiness in a minute. And all of these power games prey on emptiness, on your emptiness, on my emptiness, with the promise to either fulfill you or destroy you. Because emptiness wants to fill itself up, and emptiness wants to continue to exist. If I'm empty, I feel annihilated. Do you guys understand the concept of emptiness? I feel annihilated, so I don't want to be destroyed. I want to be fulfilled. And therefore, all of these power games are manipulating my relationship to emptiness, okay? So tip one, how can you already start neutralizing these games is focus on your own innate resilience. And I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to refer you to last week's webinar as well. You'll all get it in the thank you email, the link to the last week's webinar, because that's all about how do you connect to that resilience. Number two is start taking time to create a relationship with emptiness through acceptance. And what I'm basically saying, and I'm going to be blunt, accept your own death. When you accept your own death, you can already begin to loosen up from a lot of your problems, okay? Because they're all threatening you to be annihilated. Do you get what I'm saying? So when you reconcile yourself with your own mortal death, you're already creating a relationship with emptiness through acceptance. Okay, I know that's harsh, but what's your reaction to that when I say that? I'm just like jumping to the end of the book here. Did you have something to say, Yusuf? You're like, oh, right on the edge.
Yeah, scary.
I know. Okay. So I pushed ahead, and I'll dial it back, okay? Because we're not. If you want, go watch webinar 8, all about Death's Door, because it goes in more detail on how do you create this relationship to emptiness, okay? So, but really, if I can create a relationship to my own sense of emptiness, and I'll explain how that happens, and I can accept it, I'll already become more resilient, and I'm less susceptible to power games, okay? That way, if I'm connected to my own resilience, I can access it. Plus, I have a more healthy relationship to emptiness, where I'm I can accept it. Meaning, it's not like I'm going to die, but things that threaten me to
Accept the
die,
void.
it's fine. Yeah, it's the void. Like, oh, I'm going to take your house away and all your money away. How are you going to exist now, right? Oh, I'm losing control and I'm not a person anymore. I'm losing my identity. Oh God, what am I going to do? Well, okay, take the house away, take the money away. I know I'll survive somehow. That's my resilience. Okay, I'm not identifying through those things, and I'm willing to let it crumble, knowing that there's a permanent aspect of myself that survives. That's creating a relationship to emptiness. I can go through it, okay? Then I'll know, well, what's my baggage and what's yours, right? Because all of these power games are about throwing baggage. Oh, it's your fault. Oh, I'm blaming you. Oh, you did this to me. And you're like, oh my God, I feel like such a bad person. I need you to recognize me. I need to feel worthy. I need to belong. So I guess I'll take on your baggage. Do you guys understand where this is leading? When we throw baggage around, it threatens our sense of validation or control. So we need to know ourselves, our own resilience, our own relationship to emptiness, so that we can know what's my baggage. I know what I did wrong. I know what I need to atone for, but I don't have to atone for the things you did. That's your responsibility. And when we can create a healthy relationship with that, we actually create more flow. Any comments? I know I'm moving fast and I'm going to move on. But making sense so far?
Yep.
Okay. So here's some examples of some control behaviors that can become toxic. This can be like, and these can be extreme or they can be subtle, but it's like intimidation, blackmail, creating honeypots or false promises, or the bait and switch, or no choice offers, meaning I'll give you an offer you cannot you cannot refuse, meaning you're forced to say yes, I'll sign on the dotted line. Threats, bullying, entrapment, all of these things. These are control-based manipulation, all right? We experience this sometimes, and then sometimes it's very, very, very subtle. These are more obvious. Now, the validation games or behaviors are a little bit more subtle. This is like projection. Like, I'm not doing it, you're doing it. Gaslighting. Oh, what do you mean that I'm doing that? You're the one who's crazy here. Emotional warfare, which is like, this is your fault. You're a bad person. You're blamed. You're making my life so hard. You make me suffer. Or taking virtues and weaponizing them. Well, look how I do it. I'm such a great person. Why can't you be as good as me? I give my money to this and to that and to that. Why can't you? Or narcissism. Oh my God, I suffer for you. You never do anything for me. I'm always putting myself out there and I never get anything back from you. Woe is me, but I will keep on going because I'm such a good person. You can give nothing back to me and I'll still do it. I'm such a hero. Look at me. I'm being so vulnerable and transparent, and don't you think I'm a hero? That's the narcissism. Do you guys follow this? You heard this before? Okay. All right. These are all manipulations. Why? Because they're preying on your sense of emptiness, and it's creating an imbalance of flow, meaning it's not an equal back and forth of give and receive. There's a withholding or a hoarding or a taking, okay, of power. So they're impeding the natural free flow of give and receive, which creates healthy relationship. I'll talk about the give and receive a bit later. When these things are happening and you're buying into it, you have no freedom or autonomy. It's not respected, or it's not given, or it's not recognized. Why? Because everything is conditional. It's based upon rules and conditions, and the relationship is based on non-acceptance. I do not accept you, therefore I have to control you. I do not accept you the way you are with me because you're not validating me the way I want. Do you guys understand? There are these rules and conditions. It's all based on non-acceptance. I'll pause there just to see now what's coming to you, what's sparking up, or in any questions or insights that come up. Did you want to say something, Anastasia? You're muted though. Yeah, go ahead. You have to unmute though. You have to, yeah, there you go. You're
My son is talking to me in the back. No, I'm in. I'm in exactly this place right now. I'm having this wonderful relationship, and I can't get around one thing in my head. Like just this one thing bugs me,
Yeah.
and I can't believe that. I just can't accept him the way he is, you know. And so I'm doing exactly what you said. I'm asking him for validation, and he needs to change this one thing, and I'm so embarrassed by it. Because
Natural reaction.
I should
Yeah.
just be happy about, you know, my life. Everything is great, and I just can't get my head around acceptance of this one thing.
Yes. Okay. Great. Well, that's we're getting there on how do you cultivate that acceptance without shame and without worry, because we can start judging ourselves. Like, we're going to play these games to ourselves. We're going to play these games to others. It's all over the place. Okay. It's like a big, massive hall of mirrors. And we play these games just as much as others play them towards us. Okay. So we all do it. It's natural. Is there anyone else, or shall we keep moving? Okay, I thought I was going to be faster on this. All right, so let's explain why these games are happening. I'll try to be brief on this. So essentially, we all come from a source, an essence, an all potential. This might be a little bit more divine or esoteric. You don't have to have a religion to believe in this, but you have a permanent consciousness. It's an energy that can't be created nor destroyed. It's just always there. That's what we're calling essence or source. Your permanent, timeless being. We can always connect to it, okay? So that's this level here, right at the bottom, where there's no identity. Now, as we engage with the world and relationships, we never come from essence, okay? That's always in the background. We need an identity, and our identity shows up in two ways. It's either the resilient self or the pathetic self, okay? And there's a difference between the two. The resilient self has a free flow connection back to essence, okay? So it has a foundation. The pathetic self is disconnected from essence, and it's forgotten about essence. It says, I'm my identity. I am my own self. Therefore, I need to control everything, okay? What it feels at its base, this little gap from essence. And that's what looks like emptiness to it. So it'll never go through that gap, okay? What it's going to do instead, and they both take action. These are both very active selves. Our identities love to create and act, but the resilient self acts in a different way than the pathetic self. The pathetic self is acting in order to get back to the source it felt separated from. It says, I am seeking a source in order to gain more power and security, because it is at source that I know I'll be fine and I'll be okay. Therefore, it uses control and validation with all its actions in order to grab that source. So in relationship, when someone is coming from the pathetic self, they're trying to use control and validation in order to get you as their source of power and security. They use you for their source and power and security, okay? The resilient self works in a different way. Because it has this free flow connection to source, its actions are very different, and they can do the same action. I can stand up to my boss. I can buy a house. I can love my children, okay? But it's action it's an act of creation that comes from autonomy. I do it because I can. I do it because I'm inspired. It's not I do it because I need to exist or I need to control my existence. Do you understand the difference? So resilient self allows us to thrive. The pathetic self is obsessed with simply surviving. It just wants to keep its neck above water. Why is it different? It's because the resilient self is connected to an unconditional source within. It already has the source. Pathetic self believes it does not have that. So it has to do everything it can to reunite with that source, okay? So this is our ego-based games from the pathetic self. Now, what do we do about it? Pathetic self is always going to be there. That's part of our identity. But we want to reorient it towards the resilient self. So as soon as a problem or something comes up, we want to first activate our resilience, build that resilience, and then that can feed back to the pathetic self. And we can get them working in harmony with each other. Pathetic selves are great at identifying problems. Resilient selves are great at taking action on the problem and even accepting the problem and leaving it as is. Yeah, go ahead, Yusuf.
I have a question. So pathetic self, an angry pathetic self, how you link it or how you have the communication with the resilient self, the anger part,
Well,
got me?
here's the little known thing, and we discussed this in last week's webinar. The pathetic self doesn't know it, but it is using source energy. It thinks it's disconnected, okay? These are one and the same. They're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, yeah.
When I say, I'm so angry about this problem, I'm really focused on the problem itself. When I focus on the energy I use to be angry, what's that electricity, that adrenaline flowing through me, and I purify it, that's going to bring me into a resilient energy that I can source back to an essential quality. And we talked about that in last week's webinar too. So I highly recommend that you watch it. How do you convert resistant energy back into its source so that it's pure? The first step though is don't focus on the problem, focus on the energy you use towards the problem.
So this fuel that generate this generated from this pathetic self, this energy level, like I have to reroute it, and then the same impact will give me an answer.
That's right. So rather than say, oh my God, this is a problem, I'm so angry, I got to do something now, say, wait a minute, look at my determination, look at my willpower. Wow, that's pretty resilient. Let's get that into essence, and now we can reroute it into an action that's going to be a creative solution as opposed to just banging our head against the wall, creating perhaps more problems because we're unwilling to accept something that's happening there. The resilience allows you to accept the problem and then get creative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. So all these manipulative behaviors are coming from the pathetic self, all right? The antidote is put yourself in resilience, connect to source, and these manipulative behaviors won't have an effect because there is no such thing as emptiness, according to the resilient self. So, how do we do this? To be brief, our pathetic self is driven by judgment. It's constantly judging, navigating safety and danger, and it's looking at you and making decisions, and it's making all these judgments, decisions without really getting to know you. So if I recognize what's going on, I judge it and I act upon it, I'm stuck in my little bubble and I'm never really getting to know what's out there, okay? The way around that is, of course, I'm gonna have a judgment like, oh, if only my partner could change this thing in him, then the relationship could be better, to quote Anastasia. But I feel really bad that I'm thinking, I'm demanding that. I mean, shouldn't I be a better person? So now I'm judging myself, right? So either way, you're screwed because you're acting from judgment one way or the other, right? Instead, say, fine, I don't like something in my partner. Yeah, I wish he would change, but I don't like it. So I can move into basic acceptance of that. It is what it is. He does what he does. I don't like it, and that is what it is. Leave it alone. Don't try and change or modify it. Now you can start moving into fascination to say, okay, so what is there? He's not going to change. So what's that all about? What's he trying to do? It's not about like or dislike. It is just simply about it is what it is. And we can move down these steps of acceptance, fascination, and then appreciation. We're starting to create more of a fluidity in our relationship. As soon as I accept, I can reach over there and become fascinated, take back in some information that I could appreciate. Now I can start enjoying being in the relationship. Now I can engage with them and start participating with them and co-creating because I'm over the hump of the judgment. It's the judgment that prevented me from connecting. Now I have to say, In order to get over that hurdle, it takes some resilience. Because what I'm doing is I'm opening myself to influence. If I'm accepting this behavior I deem wrong or bad, I need some resilience to be able to start getting fascinated and start to appreciate what it's all about. If I have no resilience, I'm never going to really truly move from acceptance to fascination because I've never accepted it. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay, so these are called the 8 stages of truthful relationship. Take a screen capture of this and practice this, on your own with very simple things to move through those steps. And if ever, the judgment comes in and takes over, just reset. Notice, accept, be fascinated, appreciation. If you're not enjoying it, that just means you go back to the beginning. And eventually you make your way all through the steps. And you can start having much more of a flow, okay?
I have a question, Troy.
Yeah, go
Can
ahead.
you tell me a little bit about the fascination?
Fascination is more than curiosity, because I look at like, oh, I'm curious. Wouldn't it be nice if I could discover? That's more of a mental exercise. Fascination is a true opening of myself where I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and dig in the dirt as opposed to observe the dirt, okay? I'm willing to throw myself in the ring and play, okay? So it's more of a fascination is also, comes with, it's not just mental, but it's also emotional. I throw my whole being into it. Does that make sense? I allow myself to be, through discovering, I'm allowing myself to be affected. If I'm simply, in my ivory tower, with my white coat, my white gloves, and my observatory, I'm curious about what happens, but I don't want to be affected. That means I'm not accepting what's going on down there, okay? So I need to be willing to be affected when I'm fascinated. I need to be willing to discover and be affected, whether that's upsetting or joyful. Does that make sense what I'm saying? That's what I would say is the difference between fascination and curiosity. Very good. Very good.
And it's very interesting because I think, when I've looked at this process before intellectually, I jump to appreciation. So I think even before I've allowed myself to be fascinated and to really just throw myself in it, I forced myself to say, okay, what can I appreciate about this? And I think that's why I'm unable to move even further, because there's this really important step, I think, of acceptance. I think this acceptance and fascination, so that intellectually I'm not jumping in and saying, okay, I need to appreciate what's happening over here. It's really interesting because it brings in this very important dynamic into the process.
What I'm going to say is, as you described that, you're going from recognition to judgment, and then judging yourself and saying, I need to appreciate. Do you understand? So you're actually not in real appreciation. You're acting, you're acting from judgment, right? Yeah. You're avoiding the acceptance of it. Saying, I need to appreciate this. Let me find a way. And then, I don't enjoy that. I intellectually appreciate it, but no, I don't enjoy it. That means it's a false appreciation, right? It's appreciation disguised as judgment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Especially when you use the language, I need to appreciate. Yeah. Need to means I'm not accepting what's happening here.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think, one of the really important things which I think you've raised, and which is, something that's coming up for me as well, is that in my interest to not judge the other party, I judge myself. So I should know better. I should, and I'm using the word should a lot, because then without realizing, I'm actually judging myself and saying, you know what, I need to appreciate what's happening and I need to move on. But actually, I'm not ready to do it because now I'm blaming myself for it.
Yeah, and guess what you're playing? You're playing a validation game.
Yeah.
Am I a good person?
Mm.
Therefore, I need to appreciate, right? And I need to do all these things. I've taken all these courses, and they said. And
yeah. Hey, maybe fascination is also like looking at the other person and being fascinated as to why, or how they are and how they grew up and why they're acting the way they are. And also being fascinated at your reaction
Yes.
Yeah.
and saying,
Better
you know,
question is
that's interesting.
or yeah, as opposed to why, because why might pull you back in your bubble,
Yes.
but just how are they here? What is motivating them? Instead of me withdrawing back and figuring it out, I'm willing to discover. That means I'm willing to let my thought processes go and simply receive. I give my fascination in order to receive information. Does that make sense? It's a give and receive.
Yeah.
It's not let me figure this out, because then I'm in my own little bubble here and I'm not truly experiencing the other person. Okay. By the way, you can do this in person with people, but you can also do this mentally in your armchair. You could sit in your armchair and allow yourself to play through these scenarios and fantasies and allow yourself to be affected, okay? That's the best way to start practicing these 8 stages, is in your armchair. Armchair work. You don't need to go out in the street, okay? And if you do go out in the street and start doing this, start it with the simplest things that you can readily accept. Don't start with the first thing that you abhor, okay? So make it easy on yourself, okay? And then you build the muscle. Okay. So great, we can drop into the dream space through these 8 stages of truthful relationship. It allows us to be more fluid, where things become more complementary and we're less triggered. Now, how do we drop into this essence space where it's unconditional, it's without identity? And this is essential for shifting the relationship. So let me talk about what essence is. And there are basic qualities of essence, and they differentiate into 10, but I'm only going to give you the 4 main ones. We did last week defining the 10 essential qualities. But an essential quality is a pure state of being before action. It's like I'm a creator. I possess full creativity, but I'm not creating yet. It's just I am the creator. Limitless creativity. It's a source of resilience, vitality, and creativity. This is what gives me life. It's the life force itself, okay? When we're in essence, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to be, there's nothing to do. I'm not itching to act, again, because it's the state before action. I could sit here all day in pure bliss and enjoyment of my essence, okay? This is why we don't live here, because if we live in essence, we'd get nothing done. But it is our source of resilience, vitality, and creativity. The general characteristics is it is self-perpetuating, self-generating, it's unconditional. It's like limitless energy, and it moves itself. And so we can circulate that through us. It's a perpetual motion, and this is what can keep us it's a balanced way of moving. It's a balanced way of being in relationship. It's not about I'm losing something and I'm gaining something. Things just flow right through me, in and out, in and out, in and out, okay? Any strength that you come into contact with can be distilled into its pure essence, and we showed you how to do that in the last webinar. Again, I'm going to recommend it, and you'll get the link for it. When we distill a strength, it could be, you know, I have courage, or I'm confident, or I'm a fighter, I'm a warrior, or I'm a lover, or I'm full of compassion. Those aren't quite unconditional, because there's still a dependency. You know, to have courage, I need to fear something. But courage can distill down to a sense of unity or limitlessness or peace or love or any other variation. And those are our 4 main qualities: unconditional peace, love, unity, or limitlessness. And we do have moments when we get into those states, okay? And especially just a moment of calm or a moment of excitement, like, wow, I can do anything. Anything is possible. Peace and limitlessness are really the most common. We will feel a sense of interconnection or a sense of love and benevolence. And I will say that peace and limitlessness are the first 2 very accessible qualities. Okay, anything to comment there, or shall I move on? Okay. By the way, just again, go watch the other webinar because I go through this in much more detail. So it is possible, even when faced with toxic and manipulative behaviors, you can calm that other person down. You can see them differently and begin endowing the relationship with more resilience. What that will do is it reduces the amount of fear and reactivity because it's neutralizing it from your own resilience. It's almost like all their manipulative bids can bounce off of you. And when you're radiating these essential qualities, it becomes infectious and they start to wake up to those essential qualities in themselves. So the relationship always acts like a mirror. Someone can endow you negatively, meaning full of emptiness, or someone can endow you positively, meaning full of essence, unconditional source, limitlessness. The strongest endowment is going to determine what's going to happen in the relationship. So when faced with a game, a power game, and you can practice this without actually being physically in front of the person, first, you can imagine those behaviors coming at you and then connect with a strength, distill it to essence, and then start circulating it. And you need to circulate it within yourself. I'm feeling a sense of peace or limitlessness. So I can centralize that in myself and start to circulate it, meaning like circulate it down to your feet and ask, what am I letting go of? Let that go into the earth. That's my fear or resistance. When I'm connected to limitlessness or peace, what enables me to what do I let go of? It enables me to let something go. So I can get rid of my own toxicity. And then if I let it go down into the earth, like down through my feet, and then it naturally comes back up to the earth, I'm taking on something. I'm feeling nourished, replenished. And it could be just that the peace and the limitlessness is nourishing me. It's nourishing me so much that I'm able to give it. I'm able to let it go beyond me, give it up to the sky, to the universe, whatever. And then naturally it comes back and I'm able to receive inspiration from the universe, from the sky. Now I can keep circulating that. We've discussed that at length in the last webinar too. But I'm activating this quality within myself where by circulating the quality, I'm able to let go, I'm able to take in, I'm able to give, and I'm able to receive. It counterbalances everything, okay? So that I'm not clinging or hoarding or fighting or fleeing. I'm just in a natural state. And the focus is, what am I enjoying? And that sustains my connection to the quality. And I can keep reminding myself, how am I perfectly okay here? In my little bubble of resilience. I'm saying, this is in your little bubble, okay? In order to create an endowment in your relationship, you need to access the quality first and experience it, and then you can endow the other person to possess the very same quality. And that's where we go next. I'll show you that next. Any questions here on circulating essence energy through you? Or does it sound too esoteric? Does this seem possible? Is anything coming up for you guys? Either examples or what you've experienced in yourself? We're almost at the top of the hour. I'm going to go over a few minutes, probably 10, 15 minutes. So if you can stick around, great. If you can't stick around, feel free to, drop off. You'll get the recording so you hear the end of it. Any comments or questions here? As I asked before.
All good.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, all good so far.
I do understand that this can move into esoteric territory, but I'm sorry, but it does. Because this is a transpersonal state. When there is no identity, you are transpersonal. Okay, so
you experience it, so I know what you're talking about. I went back to the state while you're talking, so I have a glimpse now. So it makes sense for me now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
what's coming up for me actually is that it's come in. So rather than listening to all the things that people are telling me that I should be worried about and I should be thinking about this, all that noise just kind of goes away. And then it's just focused on like, okay, so what is this bringing for me? And I like this, what am I letting go of, the fear, the resistance, and then really what am I taking on that nurtures me, that makes me feel good. And then I think also just looking at what am I enjoying, and that I'm perfectly okay. And I think that one of the big things that's coming up for me right now is that, when we are in disconnect, you know, it's very much I'm outside. I'm listening to all the fears that are outside. But actually, when I come inside, then there's no fear. Then it's like, yeah, okay, everything's fine. And I get what you said, that you can't be in essence all the time, because like we have to live our life, right? We have to pay our bills. But
Yeah.
but I think, when I come inside, then all those noises, those fears, it kind of all goes away. It's almost like I've closed the door to all the noise that's happening outside.
That's
So
right. We do need to come back inside and reconnect to our own source instead of continually checking out there to verify or
Yeah.
validate. Because then we're putting the source out there, right?
Yes.
So again, like you say, what's all that? We get tons of input. Tons of, and more so ever now with social media and news and all that kind of stuff, right? It's always trying to convince you that, you need to be validated from the outside. No.
Yes.
This allows you to go back in and discover yourself. So you can discover that I exist. You can discover I actually am existing, and therefore there's nothing to control because I'm existing. So I'm just here.
Yes.
Permanent.
Yeah.
The one
so
question.
It's basically like, sorry. So it's basically like you get rid of your fear, your ego, your everything. You give it back, and you go travel to another dimension. You get the wisdom you want in this situation, and you educate your pathetic self, and then you take action, and it's transform. And you have this energy attract energy, so you have higher energy, and you endow your partner or your situation with this higher energy, and they will get the response back.
Exactly. This is plugging yourself into your own battery, right? Instead of running the battery on empty. This is a permanent source, and it's coming from the earth, it's coming from the sky, it's coming from yourself. All three are working together, okay? Earth and sky, I put that in there because it's a context. It's to make you open your eyes and realize you're living in a world, okay? I mean, if you do these questions with your eyes closed and you're just in your own little bubble, that could make you defensive. When you start opening it out to the earth, where you're willing to let go, and where you're willing to give and receive and take in, you're far more resilient because you're in a fluid state, okay? I've had sometimes working with clients when we've opened up these loops, they have a lot of fear or toxicity, and I say, well, okay, great. Let's find your resilient center. Fine. And now let all the fears and stuff just drain into the earth. And they go, oh, but I don't want to hurt the earth. You know what? The earth was built to take in the toxins, okay? It was built because this is a recycling system. So you're going to hoard all your toxicity, not be willing to give it to the earth, who's way bigger than you. You understand what I'm saying? It's a little bit narcissistic, right? So just let it go. The earth was built to take in toxins and produce nutrients, okay? It's like plants. They breathe in our carbon dioxide. It's toxic to us, but it's nutritious for plants. And what do plants release? They release oxygen. Toxic for them, nutritious for us, right? It's a give and receive. The world is built upon give and receive, where opposites are complementary. That's exactly what this loop establishes, okay? It's alchemical, if you want to say it. It's alchemical. Okay. I was going to say, if you can't get into an essential quality, maybe you're just in like, I'm Leo the lion, I'm full of courage. Great. Enjoy what that gives you. And then start to notice, what you take on, what you let go of, what you give, receive, but keep asking yourself, how am I perfectly okay? And I can even let go of Leo the lion and I'm perfectly okay. That gets you more and more into an unconditional state. If I'm not perfectly okay, I've moved into conditions. So I've moved out of the essence. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Okay. This is a way to track and do a check and balance. How am I perfectly okay now? And if I'm not, then just be honest. Say, okay, if I'm not okay, what's bothering me? And then you'll notice what you're not accepting or judging. And you just start again, reset. That's it. Okay. So once you get that activated within yourself, then you'll get charged up enough, like, okay, so wow, I'm so inspired with this limitlessness, and I feel so creative. I had so many ideas, and I just want to give this energy forward. I'd love to pass it on to another person, or I'd love the other person to be in touch with the same energy, so you can see them made of the same substance or the same essence. Okay, I feel so limitless. They too innately are limitless. We're made of the same substance. Now, this is what the endowment is you imagine this innate quality in another person. It doesn't matter if you see it, it's there. You may not see it in their outward behavior, but it's there. So you can even do this in your imagination. There's a person I'm having a problem with. You know, all they really would love is some peace and unity and strength. So I'll cultivate that in myself. And then I imagine them already possessing peace, unity, and quality and strength. And that's going to shift already how I'm in relationship with them. Now, if you, in your imagination, give it and they refuse it, fine, take it back. Don't accuse them of anything. It's natural. Charge up again. Give. See if they receive. No. Charge it up again. Give. Oh, a little bit went in there. They took a little bit. Great. Now they're receiving. So what you want is a free give and a free receive. You're not obligating them to receive, because then you're back in a game, okay? I'm so full of love and I'm giving you all my love, but you're not receiving it. Do you get it? They don't have to take your love. They don't. They don't have to. The point is, you can feel so wonderful and generous. Nobody needs to experience that the way you do. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? When we're in an unconditional place, I just give it freely. You can accept it or not accept it. It's still there. So usually by the third, fourth try, you'll get a full give and receive. Then that starts circulating through them. They're going to be inspired to give and receive something else. So it's important for you to be receptive, okay? I give you love. That inspires creativity in you. You give clarity. And then so, oh, I can receive clarity from you. I never known you to be a clear-minded person. Wait a minute. No. I need to receive that, okay? Freely receive it. Let that affect me, and then that'll inspire something else. And so eventually what we have is a free give and receive, and this is what's creating the unity, is that we're both now coming from resilient qualities. My quality could inspire something in you, but your quality inspires something in me, and eventually it all balances out, and it all becomes basically the same thing. But it's diversifies because I'm localized here, you're localized there, but essentially we're all the same substance. So it's almost like two glasses of water. At first we thought, I'm one solid glass and you're some other separate solid glass. And we start passing water back and forth and we realize, oh, actually, we are all the water. It doesn't matter what glass it's poured in. That's what unity consciousness feels like. Now that's a highly transpersonal state. You can achieve it. I facilitate that stuff in our conflict workshops and stuff, but you can also achieve this on your own. But I'm giving you basically the destination, the 8 stages of truthful relationship, basic acceptance, some basic resilience work on your own, attempting to give and receive helps, okay? What you're not looking for is you're not trying to shove your energy down their throat. What you're doing is you're saying, I'm experiencing a certain energy and I'm assuming they are too, whether they know it or not. This is a massive assumption. Even though this person does such hateful, destructive behaviors toward me, I know deep down they're full of love. So I appeal to that spark of love in them instead of continually focusing on their destructive behaviors. When I come from love and I focus on their love, it automatically, by a mirror effect, starts to calm them down. And you'll notice tiny moments where they stop their game. There's little moments of surprise, a little moment of calm or repose. And that's what you want to capture and focus on. I'm not saying this is easy work. It might be a simple concept, not easy work. It takes discipline and self-awareness to be able to do and to maintain it and sustain it. But ideally we can get there the more we work on ourselves. Reactions or comments here? Or is this way too abstract? Yeah, go ahead. Anyone? Miru, Yusuf?
Yeah, basically it's all good, but when you're in this euphoria mode, and okay, what's nice and funny is like you don't have to shove this feeling to them. So basically,
Right.
yes, but where to have the rapport then?
So what I will say is, yeah, you can, and people do get into a feeling of, wow, this is euphoric.
Yeah.
But you don't get on a crusade about it. If you start thinking everybody should experience this, you're starting to shove it down their throat. Now you're doing a power game, okay?
Pathetic, yeah.
Unconditional energy just radiates generously. It's natural. It naturally radiates. And it doesn't matter whether you verify reception or not. It's just flowing through them too, okay? So you don't need to judge and verify. Otherwise, it's becoming conditional. So these are little markers for, great, I'm feeling good. But now if I'm going on a crusade, if I'm checking and verifying, did they receive? I'm not in the unconditional state anymore. I've just started
navigating again. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so funny is we flip so fast. In reality, we dip our toes in this essence state. We spend a little time here and we're spending most of our time up there because we're so used to it and we've been so conditioned to be here. There's a lot of unlearning we need to do to start staying longer down here and then start to catch glimpses here. But look, once you catch a glimpse, you can catch it again. And when you catch it again, you stay there a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer. You just need to appreciate, notice and appreciate when you're there. Whoops, I dropped. Great. How is this what's happening? And just get to know the key features of the experience. You'll be able to access them and reproduce them again another time.
Yeah, so basically it's a muscle to train, like the bouncing ball. Yeah.
Yep. And be very happy with happy accidents.
I think what's coming up for me is I get the first thing, and then I give, and when I don't receive, I think the habit is to go back and say, okay, this is not working, let me go back. But what I'm actually taking from this is that if I don't receive, I'm still okay, It's okay. I'm still okay.
That's the simplicity of it.
And I think just focusing on that and then going again, and
Yes.
I think that for me, I think one of the big things is that in my head, there's this thing of like my heart wants to continue giving, but my head is like, okay, stop. Like, this is not the bargain. But I think that it's not the bargain. It's the feeling like, am I still okay? What makes me be okay? And then I can go back again and I can give. And so what's coming up for me is that it's not just the first time that I give and I don't receive, so it stops. But also I think this is, as you said a couple of times, it's very out there, and a lot of, I guess, people who are advising me, who are surrounding me, don't get this, you know. And I think instinctively I do, and but I'm listening to a lot of those other noises. So that's a big thing that's coming up for me, that I need to listen more to my intuition, what feels right, and you know, asking myself, am I okay? Am I okay? Because I think this is not something that a lot of people comprehend. It's like, you know, you do it and then you stop, you know. So you don't do it anymore if you're not getting, you know, back what you gave immediately. You know, one of the things that's coming up for me is this book called Give and Take by Adam Grant. And he says something really interesting about the givers. And he said, you know, when he did some research and he looked at who are the really successful people and who are the least successful. And he said the givers were the most successful and the least successful. So like what separated the most successful givers was that they took care of themselves and they kept giving. So I'm really seeing that over here. Like, you know, you come back, you give, and then you come back, you're like, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. All right, then you can give some more. So it's like this unending source of givingness that's there, but keep checking in and saying, am I okay?
Yeah,
exactly. And I will, if I could, just before you speak, Yusuf, just to clarify, you can say, am I okay? A more precise question will say, how am I okay?
Yeah.
You see, because that question puts you already into the okayness. Then you're getting specific. All right, they didn't receive, I give love. I'm feeling, you know, all this love and connection and compassion and generosity here. I give it, it's not received. How am I still okay? As opposed to, am I okay? Because you can say no. Do you understand?
Yeah, I got it.
When you say, how am I okay? It forces you into the acknowledgement that I'm still unconditional, right? And then I'm getting to know, well, how am I still unconditional? And yeah, when you're in an unconditional state, when you have unconditional knowledge, limitless knowledge or limitless creativity, this is like great mentors have so much they can share, and they just share it. They don't limit it in drips and drabs to make you pay for more. I'll give you the whole picture, right? And I know that you can ask for more, and I've got more ideas. Great, fine, steal my copyright, whatever. I can always come up with another idea, right? Great, okay, so take all my webinars, reproduce them for yourself, whatever. I'm the source of all this information. I can create more. I'm not so threatened. Unfortunately, maybe I'm not so business-minded and you were better business-minded. You know, that you knew how to market and I didn't, but blah, blah, blah.
I have a question though on that though. So imagine that an extreme situation, so you're in a relationship and the loop is broken in a way because you give and you don't receive, right?
Yeah.
And this can, and so, you know, you're meditating and you're close to your source. And the most important thing to be close to source is to appreciate and to love and to be a lover of things. And I mean, the source. And so you can say, how am I okay? I'm okay because I am, and, you know, and it's okay. And it's not the end of the world, and, you know. But at what point, like if you decide to stop, and this is where I am kind of, I'm not close to source because I don't appreciate.
Right.
But it's good for me to just stop perhaps, because this loop is tiring.
Yeah.
So am I away from source when I take action like that?
Well, okay, so if there's a lack of appreciation, all that means is that there's a lack of allowing things to penetrate. That's it. That's all it is. I can be fascinated with lots of things, but I will not appreciate them. That means I'm not going to take them in and let them affect me or change me. I'm not going to see the value in them. Do you understand? Now, the other thing I wanted to say on that was, that's not to make you wrong or anything. If you can accept that within yourself and say, fine, that's it. I will not get past the level of appreciation because I just won't let it in. go back to some source work, whatever, you know, and eventually you know, it's not true you don't appreciate things, you just don't appreciate certain things. Do you understand? You don't rush. I'm not saying that y'all have to love unconditionally 100% and accept everything in the world 100%. I mean, there are things that are disturbing in the world, and we're not always ready to completely accept them. And that doesn't mean that we let everyone off the hook and they're not accountable. No, 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 no. Everyone is accountable to their own baggage. So what I wanted to come back to is, so you give and they don't receive. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's they just made a choice. I'm not receiving that. That's it. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, or there's something wrong with what you're experiencing inside. I'm experiencing unconditional love. I want to give it to my husband. He wants none of it. So then it's a fishing game. So you throw out the line, you don't get a bite. That's it. You just reel up your line, charge back up in yourself, throw it back out. Eventually you get a bite, but you don't have to put pressure on yourself or them. Does this relate to what you were saying, Anastasia?
Yeah, I just don't know if at some point you just say, I don't want to throw it anymore.
Okay, then at that point, you can say, fine, I'm letting them go. Put them in this portion. That's it. I've tried, I'm radiating, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. But if you're still insisting that they must accept something from you, you're actually clinging or attached to something. The moment you can let it go and say, you know what? I can love them unconditionally for the rest of my life. And if they'll never see it, if they don't want it, whatever, you know, it's fine. And then I don't need to be involved. So I can cut the line and let them go. Because otherwise, it's not you who's the prisoner. You're holding them prisoner, which is affecting you more than them. I mean, they can walk away and say, you know what, bitch, I'm done with you. And you're like, yeah, but. And you're still trying to toe the line. They're never accepting it. They're never taking the bait. They're never taking it. As soon as you let it go and let them be who they are, because you're coming from a level of non-acceptance. Saying, you must, I have so much love for you. You must love me back. You must at least appreciate it or take it in or feel it. No, don't. I don't. I've been in situations where somebody, you know, I did them wrong and I apologized and I made amends, but nothing I could do would make them say, I forgive you. Or, you know, they'd just say, no, you'll always be a terrible person and I never can trust you ever again. Well, when I can let that go without trying to keep atoning, because otherwise I'm going to become a victim of their power game where they know they got a one-up on me. Do you understand? When I can let that go, I'm liberating myself and I'm still generously sending them those same qualities because it doesn't matter to me if they receive it. It doesn't validate me. You understand? You have to check in very carefully. Just because I'm giving the love, do I need them to receive it in order to validate myself that I'm so good at giving love? When you can start letting that go, it shifts everything. It's so subtle, but how does this work for you, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think for specifically my issue, I guess it is an issue of validation, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is sometimes in extreme cases, you'll snip the line. You'll say, okay, I'm done. I'm unhooking. It doesn't mean that they're non-existent. It just means I'm not hooked in anymore. I'm cutting the line. I'm taking the hook out. They can be who they are. I am who I am, but I'm no longer invested in this. It's not bad. That can be a liberation. It can be a release with yourself. It's just like killing a dream. I always dreamed I was going to be this or that, and I'm fighting and fighting and fighting my life, my whole life. But I just made a choice and said, I'm not going to pursue that dream anymore. It's how do I get myself into the position of I am perfectly okay. I'm going to end this relationship. I am perfectly okay. What you must know is you're only ending the outward identity and packaging of the relationship. You're not ending the energetic connection. That is basically forever. There's always a forever connection with people. You're just letting go of how it's packaged. They look like my boyfriend. They look like my brother. They look like my colleague, my friend, my lover. But at essence to essence, there is no identity around it. Does that make sense? So what you're snipping is the packaging or the identity. I didn't expect to go this far, but okay. What I wanted to do was just give you a summary of the basics. You know, without getting too complicated, let's get back to the basics, which is in everyday life, daily life. Hi, even with this whole lockdown, take moments to move from judgment to acceptance before taking any action. I know there's days we can get freaked out. I know we get topsy-turvy. We get curveballs thrown at us. Of course, we're going to want to act and react. If you can find a moment here and there to just say, oh yeah, oh, I'm judging it, fine. Oh, I'm judging myself. Oh. And just say, wait a minute, what's happening? It is what it is. I'm not going to act on it. It's just, it is what it is. And say, how am I okay? How am I okay with that? That's going to move you into some acceptance of what's going on. It already starts to restore resilience. That way you can start practicing the 8 stages of truth for a relationship, but start with the easy things. Start with the things you already pretty much accept or love. Don't go for your mortal enemy, because you're going to end up doing what Nero was doing. I need to appreciate. What do you naturally accept and appreciate or enjoy? So, and then you can work it up to the harder things. And I'm saying if you make it a daily practice, just notice how you're thinking. I mean, it can even be towards yourself. And notice, oh yeah, I'm not accepting that. Fine. Well, what if I did? What is it I can accept? If I just look at it is what it is. It's not about do I like it, not like it. It is what it is. You can start that. Now, as far as relationships goes, before accepting something to change, expecting something to change, like you need to change before things get better, or even I need to change, look within to your own acceptance and resilience. Before changing anything, move into acceptance. You're going to find a faster path to liberation and a more natural path. If I'm waiting for something to change, I'm a victim to waiting because it might never. I can't be proactive there. Again, that's how the 8 stages will help you. So when you find yourself saying, oh, if only, like what Anastasia was saying in the beginning, like, oh, there's just this one thing I don't like. Okay, first step is, well, what if it never changes? Start to notice how you're reacting. Notice where you can go, like what's acceptable, what's not. If it's totally not acceptable, then it means 2 things. 1, consider cutting ties, or 2, doing personal work so that you are able to accept it. That's it. It's just that simple. Doesn't mean it's easy work. But to sit and wish and hope and wait, no, you're going to suffer. That's what creates toxicity. So when working with acceptance, when working through those stages, you can start to tap into essential qualities. Your main ones are peace, love, unity, limitlessness, or limitless possibility, creativity. Remember that they're self-generating, self-perpetuating, and unconditional. So if you're saying, wow, I feel so much trust Trust in the world. It's not quite unconditional. It's based on conditions. Trust means trust can be broken. When there's unity, it's just unity. It has nothing to do with trust. But unity can inspire trust. Do you guys understand the difference? So things like courage. Courage is a reaction against fear. Trust, it's a reaction against disconnection or betrayal. So go levels deeper. What is unconditional? You can activate that quality in yourself and start to flow of resilience, like just through, great, just enjoy the sensation of it moving through me. Notice what you're letting go, what you're taking on, giving and receiving. Then what I'm suggesting is do this work on your own, not in the presence of others, because you could be tempted to force others to experience the same thing. Do this on your own. And then you can even start imagining particular relationships where you can, when you're ready to engage from a resilient place, just see the other person possessing that very same quality and notice what happens in them. Notice who they are. Notice how you react, how there's a give and receive between you. Don't look for proof. Oh, I feel so unconditional love, so therefore their face should look a certain way. They should behave a certain way. That's conditional proof. Rather, come from unconditional love and just see how it energetically impacts them, either in your imagination or for real, and look for little sparks of resilience, or where they're like, whoa, what's that? Surprise. Or, ooh, they hit a moment of calm. And connect with that and feed it. Because that is where they're dropping. Moments of surprise or calm or relaxation, receptivity. No matter what happens as you work with these circulations, just enjoy any moments of give and receive. Don't force them. Don't put expectations on them. If you give and receive once, great, fine. Enjoy what that was, because you can do it again. Again, as soon as you start controlling or forcing or saying, why am I not receiving back? Or why aren't they receiving what I give? You've gone into validation and control games. So let it go. It takes a little bit of nudge, takes a little bit of practice, meaning nudging, like nudge yourself here and there. Don't force yourself along the way. Little bits at a time, add up to a lot. What are you guys walking away with here? Wow, I went way over time. Geez, I thought this one was going to be shorter. Okay.
Never.
I know.
Thank you. Troy, you should just set these for 90 minutes.
I know. I used to. And then I said, no, I'm going to cut it. There's still 90 minutes.
It's expectations, you know. This 5-year-old here counted 1 hour, and then he's like, what happened? You know, you said 1 hour, so now he's here. But no, what I walk away from this is really the control and the validation. That to me was, I mean, it brought it home. That, of course, is more extreme examples around. I think I'm pretty in tune, aligned, whatever, but I do it also. And yeah. I recognize that, and it was kind of a bit of a slap on the face there.
And it's a natural thing we do, and we don't have to do it all the time. There's a way out. There's, again, it's resilience building will have us experience less and less of a need to do power.
And I also like this step that you say that when you're about to judge, like, take stock of that, just stop for a second, you know. And I added this, like, just listen to the other person, like, you know, when you're ready to just jump in and say something, you know, just stop. So,
and let's make a fine distinction on that. I'm not saying don't judge. I'm saying you're judging anyway. Recognize the judgment, but don't act on it so soon. So what you're suspending is the action from judgment. Okay, because a lot of other, you know, schools out there, self-help, personal development, whatever, they're saying, oh no, you shouldn't judge. No, that's a natural thing we do. We judge. We have a choice whether to act on the judgment or not. So slow yourself down. So you say, yeah, I judge. I'm judging. but I don't need to react so quickly from the judgment. That's the distinction I make. Again, it's recognize, judgment, action or creation. Before action, take a step back and consider some acceptance. That's what helps slow you down. Is that clear for everybody, or does it make sense? Yeah. You're going to judge anyways.
Yeah, totally. What I got from this course, especially my question about the loops between you and your partner and endowment. When I ask you, like, I need to do this crusader, I'm feeling this and that. But when obviously now I'm not in essence mode. But when you're in essence mode, you're limitless. So whenever you send energy and you receive a different kind of energy, it's still an energy, and it's still limitless.
It's still
So
yeah.
it's still an answer. So it's still, if you want, for the pathetic self, it's still a validation for something. But you provoke, you awake something in them. So no need to question. So no need to look for your question. If you're looking for your question, you're not there anymore. You need to drop to your.
You'll see their response. Sometimes when you start endowing people,
different response.
I had this personal experience where they're feeling the energy. Oh yeah, they're experiencing the very same thing, but they're blocking it immediately after. And so all I need to focus on is not that they blocked it, it's that they experienced it.
Yeah, this little.
It's a crack and it worms its way in. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I can say, great, yeah, you can block me, but man, inside, we're the same. You got the same thing. And it helps me be a little bit more flexible and adaptable. I can still
It's a data in a way. It's a data in a way. I received the data in a way. Yani,
and even when I put
to manipulate, just to,
yeah.
I got it.
That's right.
Now.
And when I lay down the law or put my foot down and say, hey, wait a minute, I got to hold you accountable. I'm not losing connection with that essential quality either, right? So just because I say no doesn't mean I don't love you. Do you understand? And then it doesn't mean that you're losing love. I'm just saying no. That's it. It's completely separate from that essential connection. And when I keep appealing to the unconditional love between us while saying no, then you're going to come back with something else. You're going to come back with a creative solution, as opposed to throwing baggage on me, trying to make me feel like a terrible person. I know I'm not a terrible person. Right? I'm in an unconditional state. Anyways, I can go on and on. Anyone else? So it takes time and practice to master this stuff, okay? And it's part and parcel with our courses. So I briefly go through it. We have modules. We have a series of 3 modules. In module 1, you get the foundational skills to build resilience in yourself and your relationships. In module 2, you're learning advanced techniques to work directly with those pathetic selves and strong resistance, how to neutralize them. In module 3, you start reconciling the resilient and pathetic together, your identity with your essence. And that opens you up to those more expanded levels of consciousness, those unconditional states, okay, states of essence, which is like super consciousness. And we even done brain level readings, and it's proven. We have application courses like Reconciling Conflict, where this is applied directly to, how do you dissolve the power games? It's not about solving them, but dissolve them within ourselves and with others. And it's focused on strong dynamics. And then how do you do this with groups? How do you do this in a leadership capacity? Managing multiple levels of relationship dynamics. So those are what we offer. And the module 1 is coming up online this weekend. So if you're really interested and you want to get on it, Nero is joining us, which is fantastic. Do it. Just send me an email and say, I want to get into the online course. It's April 24th to 26th. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 sessions a day, morning and evening, morning and afternoon, European time, 3 hours each. It is an intensive. And then we have in-person courses coming up later in the year. Now, I'm not so sure about the June courses based on the lockdowns, but I'm hoping that our October courses will be fine. If June happens to be still in lockdown, we'll just do another online version. And I may even like I was saying earlier before the recording, we may do an online version during May, and it won't be over 3 days, but maybe staggered out a little bit more over a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in an online training, contact me. Our next webinar is, it's not Essentials of Healthy Relationship. I forgot to change the title. It's Awakening the Higher Mind on April 28th, all right? And this is getting into those expanded states of consciousness, all right? And how our brain works and how to open a more lucid awareness. So that's coming up on April 28th. It's a Tuesday, all right? So feel free to contact me. info@essence-dynamics.com. We have the website. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And when you look on YouTube, we have other webinars available. But for those that aren't listed, you can always request, okay? And if you look on our registration site for the webinars, I give a complete list of all the webinars, and I've opened links to some past webinars there as well. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you again soon. I'm going to stop the recording now, and if anyone wishes to hang around for more questions, feel free to do so. I got time for you. So thank you, everyone. And
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Troy, for your generosity and so much of learning today on this webinar. And I'm really looking forward to the weekend. So I'm going to see you in 2 days' time.
Yeah, in 2 days. Yes.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
in the meantime, for everyone, you know, you can keep signing up every week, and then also just keep it simple. Keep it really, really, really simple. Just spend the next couple days, weeks, just being really simple with yourself, and that already will be so beneficial. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.